You're tuned in to The Local Lens, the podcast from the Powell County Health Department where we go inside our community's experience with the drug epidemic. And we're going to hit the ground running on this episode because we've got a lot of ground to cover. What happens a lot of times when people are battling addiction is they have some kind of run-in with the law and with the court system. And to give us a little more on this, we've got Jarrett Rose. This is from a past clip we did with him back at the time he was working for the Commonwealth Attorney's Office.
They're so out of touch with reality that they can't see the problem themselves. Yeah. And that's where, unfortunately, someone else sees the problem. And we just hope it's the right people. We hope it's not someone who's going to let them OD. For better or for worse, cops are going to see the problem and most likely arrest them. And then they're introduced into the court system. That's where we see the problem and we try to intervene.
So when they try to intervene, they are stepping in to do things that are trying to help the situation. And we see an example of that with this clip from a past episode with Jordan Schuler.
We got over to Winchester, and before we made it to Walmart, I got pulled over with dope and stuff on me. And the cops put me in jail, and I got out on the MCR, and then they put me on drug court, which I've been on drug court for 12 months, something like that now. I'm a year and 5 months clean.
Yeah.
So
this happened like a year and a half ago when you got put into jail?
February 9th, February 10th I got out, and that was my clean date. So, yeah, that was a trip. So I believe just God didn't want me to go to rehab, that he just wanted me to get clean and not be away from my family. So I thank him for that.
And he was able to not go to jail and stay with his family because the court put him in this program called drug court. And drug court is an alternative to jail where people in the court system are keeping track of the participants and seeing how they're doing. And if drug court isn't helping them actually recover, then they look to other options. And that is what happened with Bill Helton. So here is a small clip of Bill's story from one of our past episodes.
Now I'm just desperate on the run now. And they tried to catch me for like 6 months. And finally, on July the 23rd, 2016, I'm standing outside, having my guard down, and they pulled up on me. And I ran from them. I tried to run, and I actually got way up in the hills from them, and they chased me down, and I run into some briars, and no shirt on, and I just stopped and threw my hands up. They don't like when you run from them, by the way. On the way out of there, I made a decision in my mind that if I was fortunate enough to not get a big prison sentence, I was going to turn my life around after this. So I asked for drug court. I wanted to. Drug court's a pretty good program if you do what they ask of you and stay clean, just meet all your requirements. So they gave me drug court. I got out, and I did perfect for 6 months. I did have a couple short relapses that lasted a day or two each. But ultimately, it was so much that just by their guidelines, they had to send me to treatment.
So at some point in a person's addiction, the court system is likely to get involved. And when that point inevitably comes, there are options. And now we're back with Jarrett Rose.
We are able to, based on their prior record and based on currently what they're charged with, we're able to give them an offer at a very early stage in court. It always includes some form of treatment. Now that's where it gets tricky, is trying to work and see what puzzle piece fits best. What treatment option is best for them? Is it drug court? Is it straight up, just being assessed by probation and parole, whatever they recommend? It could be something as simple as attending AA meetings or NA meetings, or it could be as profound as up to a year, in in-house rehab facility, a bedded facility. Is it sometimes the best way? No. I wish we could just peacefully approach everyone and say, gently lay our hand and say, you need to go to rehab.
Yeah.
And they would say, okay.
Yeah.
Show me how.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work that way. A lot of times it's a high-speed chase, or it's, kicking down the door, or it's them passed out with a small child in the back seat. It's, it gets gritty and it gets ugly, but I think the end goal is the same, to get them help.
So in this episode, we're going to be taking a close look at one of those ways that he's talking about that they get them help. That is drug court. Drug court is a specialty court that was developed to give people the option of, instead of going to jail, going and actually trying to find recovery for themselves so that they can rehabilitate their life and they can keep going and keep participating in society instead of sitting in jail. And to help us do that, we have April Smith and Angie Gregory from the Montgomery County Health Department. They both help run the Montgomery County Drug Court. And we've heard from the two of them recently on the jail education program, and this is actually the second half of that conversation with them. So thank you all for tuning in to this episode of The Local Lens. We are coming to you from Stanton, Kentucky, a small town nestled at the foothills of Appalachia. This show's goal is to gather as many perspectives as we can from all around addiction and gather them all in one place so we can get to know addiction a little bit better and address it more effectively. So let's go on and get into it. These are our people using our voices, telling our stories, because no one sees it like we do.
I am Angela Gregory with the Montgomery County Health Department, and I work with our jail education program.
And I'm April Smith. I work for UK Healthcare as a health education coordinator / risk reduction specialist, and I'm housed here at the Montgomery County Health Department.
You and April work together?
We have for about 4 years now, but as far as the jail education grant and harm reduction and things like that, we've been doing that together for about
A year and a half.
a year and a half, 2 years, something like that.
So they are mostly in the jail together at this women's jail, but they also do a lot of work together with the drug court of Montgomery County.
What's drug court like? I've met a lot of people that have been participants on it and have never spoken to anybody involved on the back end of it. Some lawyers have told me I need to talk to drug court people, and never have.
Well,
We've
April's
been on the team, the Montgomery County Drug Court team, for, I think I've been on it for maybe 2 or 3 years.
April's been on it longer than I have.
And then you've been on it over a year, maybe a year and a half to 2 years.
It'll be 2 years. I think it'll be my second year, maybe in February.
So
that
the
I've
way
been on it.
the way it works is, well, I'll tell you the way it works now. We do everything via Zoom. Previously, and it meets weekly. Before, we would actually go to the courthouse, meet with the judge, and we still meet with the judge, but right now it's all through Zoom. So we go in, we have a drug court summary that is given to us prior to meeting with participants. We meet as a team without the participants to go over everybody we're going to meet with that day, and we'll have a list. This is who we're going to meet with today. Are they in compliance? Have they fallen, short in this area, and how can we address it? We have a discussion as a team on each person. We come up with a game plan, and then that takes it depends. If everybody's in compliance, it's maybe 5 minutes.
Right.
If somebody's really struggling, we can talk for 20 or 30 minutes and try to come to a consensus on what's the best next steps for that person. And then they're invited into the Zoom, the participants are, and then the judge is there. And we don't really address the participants, but he addresses the participants based on our input as a team. And he says, here's what's going on. You're doing great. I'm so proud of you. Keep up the good work. If that's not the case, then he's saying, here's the areas that needs attention, and here's our recommendation. And sometimes it's just a matter of saying, here's our expectation, here's what you can do to meet it. In other cases, this has been a pattern of failure on your behalf. I'm sorry, you are no longer allowed in drug court anymore. And those are tough days because we want everybody to be successful.
You do.
And sometimes that isn't the case. And
sometimes
what else?
it isn't at all. You have to do quite a bit for the judge to say, you're no longer going to be in this program.
Yeah.
I mean, he has been, I think, at times very lenient to try to keep people involved because he knows the program can work if you're just willing to work it. And it is hard to work.
There's a high level of accountability, especially when you're in phase 1.
Yes.
You have to submit to random drug screenings. You have to wake up in the morning at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, call this number, see every day, like every day of the week, you have to make that call. And you don't know when it's going to be your day, but it will be your day at some point in the week to come in for that drug screening, and then you have to submit to that drug screening. And if there's any type of dilution or anything like that, they send it away for a lab. And then if that comes back and the lab supports what the initial screening says, then there's maybe possibly a sanction, which a sanction means a 24-hour time in jail. And so in addition to the daily call, they have to do so many meetings a week,
Yes.
which is 12-step or self-help meetings.
Individual counseling.
Individual counseling. They have to be maintaining a job or actively looking for work. If they don't have their GED, they have to be actively working toward their GED.
Yes.
And you have, I believe, 20 hours of community service.
I think each one of them is different for
Yeah.
each one of them, because some of them have actually worked here in the Civic Center doing their community service through drug court.
So when you're looking at phase 1, drug court is pretty much your job.
It
That's
is.
a lot of hours.
It
It's a
is.
lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot that they expect from them.
And it's a high level of accountability, which is great.
But if they can get through the program, then that's much better for them, because if it's a felony charge,
They may be looking at 5 to 10 years in prison.
they could be. And that's not going to be the case if they can complete the program.
And
How does somebody get to drug court?
they have to be
referral.
referred.
Okay.
Yes.
Referral. Actually, we have 2 ladies right now in drug court that were with the jail program. They're doing wonderful. I am really surprised that they have done as well as they have, but it has to be a referral, and it's usually from the court. But I did slip in a suggestion on one lady, and I guess it got to the right person. And I'm not saying it was just me. Maybe somebody else was, rooting for her too. I don't know. But I do have 2 ladies right now in drug court, and they're both doing fabulous. But it's referrals from the court mostly. That's what it is.
It sounds like a really cool program. Like, I mean, it sounds effective. Anybody I've talked to that says they've done it says it was very, very, very hard. But coming out the other side, they kind of restructured how they spent days.
So speaking of resetting,
Yeah.
so there's 3 phases,
Yes.
and you can be in phase 1 for a long time. Like probably the minimum it would take to complete drug court would be, what would you say, 18 months?
I always thought that 18 months was
Like-
the least amount you would
Yes.
be there.
But if you say you're in phase 1 and you're getting ready to phase up to phase 2, but all of a sudden you get back a test that is not good, that can prevent you from going to phase 2, and then the judge may say, I'm going to give you another month in phase 1. And so we're looking at 18 months minimum, but if somebody struggles in areas, it may not be the situation where you're out of drug court, but it may take you 2 years
Right.
or 3 years to
It could.
complete, and we've seen that.
Well, there's one lady it's been several years that
Yes.
she's been in there, but she's
And
getting ready to graduate.
I know,
Finally.
and it's exciting because it's just like you said, in the beginning it's not the same person that you see at the end, and you see their personalities come out as they do work on their recovery and just come alive and get a job, and all of a sudden there's this sense of pride that comes out.
They
and
do.
It's really awesome to watch, along with their personalities coming back to them, their emotions waking up. And I've heard so many times people in recovery say the best thing about getting your emotions back is you get your emotions back, and the worst thing is you get your emotions
Yes,
back and now you have to deal with them. But it is a beautiful thing to watch and see.
It is. We have one man that's involved in drug court right now, and we were all really concerned in the beginning because we are doing this by Zoom and all of this, and he had no technical technical, I don't even know
Skills.
skills at all. And, he would get on the camera and he'd be struggling with
He would be
not being on
sideways.
mute or muted when it didn't need to be, and unmuted when it should have been. It was just crazy. And he was sideways and
Upside down.
I mean, it was crazy every time he would get on there. And to watch him, because he's an
Blossom.
older man.
Yes.
He's an older man. Well, he's my age, so I don't know how old. But he's an old.
undisclosed information.
Yes.
No comment.
Yeah, to watch how he's just grown in this process in the last, I don't think he's been in quite yet a year. Maybe he has, I don't know. But I have really enjoyed watching him change. I mean, his appearance, the way he speaks when they're talking to him, and we've got Zoom down now. We know when to be muted and
So he's
not
gained
muted.
that skill.
He has,
Yeah.
and I mean, just that, that doesn't mean a lot to some people, but I think that's meant a lot to him.
It has.
I think that's
His
meant,
confidence has grown.
It really has. He, I'm excited to see him every time he's on there, just to see what's going to be different this time. So,
And so
cool.
when they do graduate drug court, and you may hear it called specialty court, they do make a big deal out of it. It's really cool. They have a graduation. The participants can invite their families. They have a ceremony. There's food. They're able to give them incentives. We've been able to write a $500 mini grant out of the ASAP fund to assist with the food and the incentives, and that's been really rewarding and purposeful. And when they have that, when you graduate drug court, you've done something.
you have.
It's really a
You have,
stringent program.
So just to tie this back in, this is an alternative to jail. And a lot of times, people that are going through drug court do have to report to jail every now and then.
It may be 24 hours that a participant would do a 24-hour time in jail. It could be a week. It could be 2 weeks. So that the teams definitely have to work closely with the jail to say, we have a client coming over at this time. And the client, or the participant rather, will self-report a lot of
Yes.
times. And they'll just show up and they're like, I'm here for my 24-hour sanction. And so the jail and the drug court team are in close contact about those things.
Okay.
They do actually report themselves, and if they choose not to do that, then they have what they considered absconded. Is that what they consider that?
Non-compliant.
Non-compliant.
And then they can be picked up by
Yes,
law
they can be
enforcement.
picked up by law if that.
But a lot of them who are in good standing and they want to keep that will self-report.
Yes, for the weekend or the 24 hours or whatever the
And then-
judges chose to do.
And he will work with them if they've got a schedule at
Job.
work. And he'll look, well, if you're going to be working here, let's do the sanction here so that doesn't interfere with your job. And that's a part of it that I had never really considered before. So, it is like I said, it's a stringent program and at times very hard. And it takes a lot of willingness on the part of the participant to complete it.
And self-discipline is
Yes.
something that they definitely have to have.
Yes, I agree, 100%.
And that is something with their life skills classes or training, that would be something else that they would need to learn, is just self-discipline, because it does take that to complete this program.
It is a tough program, and it should be, because it's an alternative to sitting in jail. But that is a welcome change, because jail is a funny thing. So you've got these people who are behaving in a way that goes against the laws of our society, and you want to change their behavior. You don't necessarily just want to pile them all up and keep them in one place, I wouldn't think. It'd be better to get people back on their feet and help them turn their lives around. And that is what drug court is actively trying to do.
I think a lot of time is lost while people are serving their time, that you could be doing a lot of things to help these people. I mean, I think that's where a lot of changes could be made, is just, I mean, we're doing a program, but those people are there for months and months and months. There's so many things that you could do to change their lives.
And this is calling back to the time she actually spends working in the jails.
You're in there for 2 days a week. How many hours at a time?
It's different amounts of time.
Yeah.
Because other times groups come in and or they've got court, they'll have to leave for court and things like that. So I can be there 2 hours, or I've spent the entire day with some of them. Especially when we've been able to go outside. That seems to be the time, which I know they want to be outside. It's their rec area, and I know they want to stay out there as long as they can. So they are more open and everything those days. They think that, I don't know if they think they're hoodooing me, but they're not. But I understand why they want to be there and be outside, and I want to keep them out there as long as they can too. So I have spent the entire day with them before, and I actually enjoy that.
I believe it, yeah.
I do.
You seem like somebody that enjoys a lot of things.
I try to.
Good.
I try to.
Good.
But
You can't take her to the store. She knows everybody. You'll be in there for 2 hours.
Okay, well, we'll go on and get back on track now. So this is all a part of harm reduction. And harm reduction, as it applies to addiction, is a really big picture that involves all kinds of different areas. You've heard us talk about on this show a lot about syringe exchange programs, which are programs where people can bring in used syringes and exchange them for unused new syringes. And that is a way to try to keep the spread of infectious diseases down, like HIV and hepatitis C, which they're very effective programs in doing that. And they also expose people who are using drugs to healthcare. They get people coming in and building relationships. So it's a great program, really. Harm reduction also looks like people using Narcan and naloxone, which is a drug that stops overdoses right in its tracks. So when people are carrying naloxone and it's stopping overdoses from happening, that is stopping death right in its tracks. And that is incredible. That's another thing that harm reduction looks like. So Montgomery County and many other health departments across the country are working to try to get more harm reduction services in their addiction treatment programs so that we can start meeting people where they're at and keeping people alive and healthy longer.
Sarah and I have been working on a harm reduction video series. We do not yet have a syringe exchange here in Montgomery County, and a syringe exchange is part of harm reduction. It's not all of it, but it's a part of it. Look for the harm reduction video series on the Montgomery County Health Department Facebook page. And so we're working on, I guess the purpose of it is to further inform the public on harm reduction and also the benefits of a syringe exchange for our community, because the fiscal court did encourage us to put more education out there on syringe exchange. So we're hoping that this video series will address that educational piece.
Give us a little bit of a spoiler. How does harm reduction help a community?
So, spoiler alert.
Most broad terms you can give it. Get as specific as you want to. Like, what's important about this?
So, what's important about harm reduction is it meets people where they're at. And when I say meets people where they're at, I mean people that are struggling in addiction. So, it can look like peer support. It can look like Hep C and HIV treatment and testing and connection to treatment. It can look like a syringe exchange, Narcan education, and getting Narcan kits out in the community are all part of harm reduction.
And it can also look like people going into the jails and helping them learn how to rebuild their life so that they can avoid coming back to jail, so they can instead worry about raising their children or living happily and healthily. And that is just about all that we've got for you guys today. We have closing statements, and then that will be the end of this episode.
Any final thoughts you guys would like to give on anything you'd like to leave people with today?
I would just like to leave people with this thought that if you know somebody that's struggling with addiction, maybe a friend or a family member, just look for ways to be a friend to them, because you may be able to support them in ways that are unexpected. And I think it's important to set healthy boundaries and to use wisdom, but at the same time, don't just close yourself off. Look for ways that you can support them, because you may be surprised at how you can help them in the recovery.
That's kind of where I was thinking, is that if people would just open themselves up a little bit to look at addiction or people struggling with that differently and see a way that they can help. And I think a lot of people just look at it so harshly, and they're not looking at the whole situation. So if people could just, be more open-minded about it and think, is there a way that I could help them? If it's coming to the jail to help teach reading, or if it's just to be a friend to them or whatever, I think that would make a huge, big difference in our community and any other community if we were just willing to be more helpful to the people that we see that really need help. I don't think they're in the situation that they're in because that's where they want to be. I don't think anybody wants to be where these people are. I don't. So, and I try to treat them as I would anybody. I really do. I try to help them as much as I can, and to look at them and offer my support whatever way that I can.
Well, thank you all for tuning in to this episode of The Local Lens. Thanks for sticking with us. Hopefully you got some good information about drug court and how that fits in with the rest of harm reduction. All of this stuff is so connected with each other. The jails aren't just operating on their own. Health isn't just operating on its own. It's all working together. And then you tie in the economy of the local area. Addiction is something that comes in and wrecks all of these systems. And it takes all of these systems working as one unit towards the same goal to actually come away with meaningful and positive change. And it's not bad for people to have to go to jail, but we've seen over the course of several decades that just locking people away forever isn't a solution. And that is coming from police officers that we have heard from on this show before. So thankfully we have programs like Drug Court offering an alternative to that. So thank you, April and Angie, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Thank you to WSKV for broadcasting our show, and a big thanks to the Powell County Health Department and Kentucky Rio for sponsoring the show. And thank you all for listening, and we hope you're sharing it with your friends. Find us online and let us know what you think. This is The Local Lens. I'm your host, Nate Brooks. These are our people, using our voices, telling our stories, because no one sees it like we do.